So when you hear stories like, people talking about the idea that black people are not equal, or there was just the idea that they're not meant to mix.
It breaks my heart that they can be so ignorant of what the future could bring. And it may sound cliche, but if we all worked together and treated each other with respect and love and caring and compassion, this world would not be in the state that it's in. Because we'd learn more. We'd know more of, Chinese traditions go back 5,000 years. Far more than we do over here. Most of us can trace a country's history as far back as 2 or maybe 3,000 years, not more. And we've all moved around the world. So how can there be racism? How could people acknowledge racism? And this is the point we've always gone from. We tried to treat people with kindness, and we did back then. Me and Steve, we always tried to treat every single person who came to our front door with kindness. If they were in need, we didn't care if they were black, white, pink with purple spots. It didn't matter. If they were in need, that was the way that they were treated. And we hoped they would carry that forward.
Brilliant.
And that has worked.
Fantastic. So what was the relationship like with your husband's family?
Strained. Some of the nephews didn't accept me. This short, overweight white woman, not on.
Was it about your colour, or was it the fact you were short or overweight? What was it that made them?
That I was white.
Okay. Do you understand why they felt that way, or is it something that's been an issue for you?
They were in gangster mode, some of them. Others, I was just another member of the family.
How did that make you feel?
With the ones that just treated me as an auntie, fine. I thought the world of them. But I felt so sad for those who were so full of anger.
And the anger stems from somewhere. I mean,
Yeah, that was their own personal history.
Their own personal, what do you mean? Of relationships with white people, or was it just, why would anyone have kind of like animosity towards someone they don't know, unless there was something behind it?
I believe so, but I never really found out what had triggered it. His sisters, not all of his sisters would talk to me. Some of them would. Others didn't find they could communicate. They liked to play jokes, and the jokes were cruel ones.
So it was like reverse racism.
Every community, every how can I say community? You get racism from every race. If you could call one particular area a race, but we're so genetically intertwined, there is no difference. And I couldn't make them understand this.
I think maybe for them it was the history. There was too much history.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they would have accepted you, as family if there'd not been all the history.
They thought I was ignorant of. With Steve, they called him a coconut, which, as you know, is an insult. But he said, well, if that's the way you see me, then you're not my family. But other members would say, well, she's lovely. What's the problem? There was so much confusion with it. Racism would bring confusion.
And that didn't help the relationship flourish, though, did it?
If you are stout in your beliefs, in your personal beliefs, in your personal ethical code, then it should make no difference. It's hurtful, but it should make no difference within the relationship itself. And that's the way that me and Steve were together. When we were apart, he would have fall flat on his arse and give in. And then come home and say, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have thought like that. So what are you talking about? You did the lecture. You taught people how arts and crafts, culture, how that changed the world. How the blues originally came from the beats in Africa. The way that they would sing. So that is rhythm and blues. You've got jazz. That's not pure white, you know. That is totally not white. That's your first rap. In blues, you've got everything there. You've got ska. You've got...
And he was teaching people this stuff.
Yeah, he was teaching people about this. He had designed a...
And why did he do it? Did he teach them because he wanted to understand?
Yeah. He wanted more people to understand.
About what it was to be black.
Not just what it was to be black, but the influence that the various cultures from Africa, from the whole continent, because from north to south there'd be differences right the way through. Each tribe had its own traditions. Where did they come from? What were those traditions? How were they transposed? What happened? What did they bring with them? The small instruments that they would make, with the flattened horseshoe
nails. It's all
nails.
about the contributions that they've made to the world.
And without
which
that
created
happening,
some sense of pride for him.
It did. Because he could see that his lineage had made a contribution to the world, had influenced the world, as much as Marie Curie, as much as peanut butter. Everything had become so intertwined with the music, the arts, the way things were painted, the drums, the communication, the respect and the eloquence that people were starting to find in the way that they interacted with each other. I interact with art. I use abstract, I use fun, I make people smile. That's what he did with his music. On his gravestone is written, "Be the best that you can be, surpass me."
Fantastic. So, it's wonderful. I mean, it's like when you hear these accounts of people who have suffered so greatly, but then all they want to leave to the world is positivity and love. It makes you wonder. It's like it should almost be the opposite. They should be basically leaving a tale of woe and sadness, in their wake. But instead, they bring love and knowledge. It's almost like they want to pass on something that allows the world to be free one day. Isn't that something to be admired?
Yes, absolutely. To be admired.
That from sadness and from pain and from impoverishedness and disadvantage, you can get beauty.
Yeah. I'm lucky. I live in a family that have never been racist and have fought tooth and nail to make sure that their surroundings and their family, their outer family, their influences, my influences, Steve's influences, are not racist. To respect and bring an interaction of culture. Only through knowledge will we rid the world of this total parasite of ignorance. So
that's fantastic. I mean, literally, that is a wonderful ending, I'd say. But I want to ask you one thing. Okay, we know that Steve's passed, and it's an absolute shame. I'm very sorry that I was lost to you. But what's it been like living without him? How has it changed your life?
In the beginning, I went into shock, and I needed to recover from a complete nervous breakdown. I came close to committing suicide. I've got no quibbles about that. I've dealt with it, moved on. And that was thanks to my son and my friends that I ended up here. We needed a place to live. and I could only afford a certain amount of rent, out of work, on disability. We stood here, looked in, a bit small, but we can do it. A large 3-bedroom house into this? Yeah, no problem. You can see what's happened. But a dog ran past, hell for leather, through the alleyway. 3 seconds later, he was followed by 12 cats, all with the tail up, all running, and they were on a mission to get the dog. My son looks at me and says, "Yes, Mum, this will suit you down to the ground. You go against the grain." And that's the way I've lived my life ever since. It took me a while to be able to go to sleep without cuddling a pillow, without having some shape along the side that didn't have the weight. Not get ready to jump out of bed waiting for the leg to come slamming down in his sleep because he had restless legs, or he'd be dreaming he'd be marching. That's when I'd go and sleep on the floor. It was safer. I never held it against him. It was part of him. But Steve was magnificent. He loved his family, his brother. He loved them all.
The last thing. You know, obviously, as a white woman, you could have been with another white person and had a totally different life. But do you regret anything? Do you regret the decision of the relationship with Steve?
Nope. The only thing I regret about Steve is letting him go to an interview in Jamaica. Because when the twit came back, he'd bought drink in the supermarket just before he came back. Somebody swapped it. And we think he was set up. We know who was responsible. That person has passed away. Tried jumping out a 3-story window after being chased by the police.
Can you explain what happened? Because obviously that's not very clear to people listening.
Steve went for a job interview at a newspaper as a journalist to write articles, intellectual articles about slavery and about the movement of things and the movement of the arts and crafts and culture. He would be based for the most part here in England, but would have to go out to Jamaica every now and then. We never found out if he got the job. But we borrowed money from one of my brothers and we got him out there. He went for the interview, he was there for 2 weeks, came home. He met a few old friends. You can't live out there and not have old friends. And had a few games of passionate domino with machetes down the side, which did make him nervous. But he had his interview, came back, was full of the joys of spring, but he had bought several bottles of fortified wine, which you're only supposed to be able to get in Jamaica. It was traditional wine bought out there in the supermarket. He'd packed his bags, gone for a game of dominoes, come back, picked his bags up, gone to the airport, come through. Okay, clear the airport, clear all the luggage, got everything washed. There were some wrapped up bottles so they wouldn't break in the suitcase, stuffed under the bed. And they stayed there for about a month, didn't touch them. He needed to go to Southend to go and give a lecture to the council in Southend. He never got there. He was feeling thirsty. He'd got heart trouble and he was feeling a bit nervous. So he said, "Give us a bottle of what I brought back." So I went and he said, "Any one of them." So I went and picked up one of these bottles, gave it to him. He took one swig and said, "This doesn't taste right." And as it just caught on his mouth, just a drop of it dribbled down, it suddenly went white. And we're straight on the phone. He's swallowing my antihistamine pills just in case, because he could feel his tongue swelling up. So we called the police. We called the ambulance first. I told them what was going on. They said, how do you know it's cocaine? I said, it's drying white on his mouth. What do you expect it's going to be? He's just come back from Jamaica. Did he do it himself? Why? Why would he drink it if he knew it was there? They cleared him, they cleared me, they cleared everybody in the house. But an example of the racism that we were talking about was prime. They wouldn't let me in the ambulance with him, because they didn't believe that this big burly black man could be with this tiny little white woman. That wasn't right in their eyes. I had to let the lodger's girlfriend go with him. And that hurt deeply. That was the worst episode I could ever think of racism. It was not believed that I was his partner. But we had already written down everywhere that I was his next of kin in preparation for the wedding in a few weeks. So luckily the law was on my side. And he'd already put me in the will as, what do you call us, those that run the probate, executor.
Executor of the will.
Yeah, executor. Me and another lady, our best friend. So the law was dealt with in that respect. But having to phone his mum and his sisters and tell them that he was dying, get here now. They lived half an hour away in Croydon. Even before they got here, he'd already passed away. And we all went into shock, because a strange thing with their family is the eldest one in the family that passes away for whatever reason, and he was the eldest. So his mum had lost another eldest child. I think there were about 3 that had gone before him. And I have never seen from one of the sisters, one of the cousins, such a look of hatred towards me. When his brother came over, that all changed. His brother was so kind. He's a church minister in America. And we had the funeral eventually. And that was almost like a tug of war between the two families. There was me in Morden and his family over in Croydon. And I was immediately pushed out. As soon as the funeral was over, they didn't communicate. They didn't really want to know. So I was dropped like a stone, and that was a hard bit of racism. I tried. They didn't want to hear me. They didn't want to see me. Even being there, being me, was causing them pain, and I couldn't do that to them. So I came away, came here, and this is the best place, because it made me stand up for myself again.
Well, thank you so much. That concludes what we've been doing today. It's very tragic. The end of that story is very tragic, but also equally, the sense of rebirth as well.
Oh yeah.
So and obviously I admire you greatly. That's why I'm here.
Thank you, Mark Anthony.
But for us, it's very important. I just felt that it was something that needed to be told, a story like this, because this is called The Battles We Fight.
Yes.
And so I wanted to kind of like relay to people, this idea that it's not just people of colour that fight racism.
Oh no.
And even in the relationships together, there's a battle that they fight together.
Yes.
to beat racism. And
yes,
these
absolutely.
battles are almost, it's like they're not considered. and they're just as important as any battle that a black man has on his own, or a black woman has on her own, or a black couple have together, or black family in that respect. But when you break out of that and you try to be different, try to be an individual,
it can be very hurtful.
you have both sides. You have both sides that are fighting against you as well. So it's just, I just wanted to just look at that and to show that, you know, in some regards, you know, it's because of those battles that we have the change that we have today.
Yes, it is. The changes are coming.